Take the credit or take a risk? That was the question faced by some students at the University of Virginia this week as they wrapped up classes on a turbulent semester disrupted by the coronavirus crisis. This is Virginia Reports, and I am Ryan Gilchrist. With me tonight are some colleagues of mine who are students at the University of Virginia. Abby Sachs, who is a rising junior, and Kara Peters, who is a rising senior at UVA. They've been in the middle of this and have done some research, and I'm going to mostly get out of the way and let them tell the story tonight. So to begin with this, Kara, if you could explain a little bit the situation and why we arrived at this point.
Sure, and thank you. So in the wake of COVID-19, the University of Virginia has issued a grading policy for students to adhere to just shy of the last day of classes. So on April 28th, students had to make a decision whether or not they wanted some classes to be received for a grade or have the credit, no credit grading policy, which was the default grading policy. This policy doesn't affect GPA, and the students can choose to either take the class or get the letter grade, and this does not include graduate schools at UVA. So basically how it works is you can get the CR where it's a C or above, or it can fulfill major or regular requirements. And the other one that you can have is no credit or as if you have failed.
Okay. Abby, I know there was quite a bit of communication from the school on this, although it may not always have been clearly understood. So if you could just sort of recap what you heard from the administration and the communication you got on this subject.
Yeah, so we first heard about the new grading system on March 18th when we got an email from Provost Liz McGill. There was also an announcement released on the UVA website with the same wording, and that just announced the new policy of credit, no credit being the default option, as well as saying our last day to decide whether we wanted to receive credit or grades for classes was April 28th, which is the last day of class. It also included that grad schools were not included in this default grading system. Grad schools would have to decide for themselves whether they wanted credit, no credit as their default. And it also said that there would be language on our transcript explaining that credit, no credit was the default. And then for a while, we didn't hear anything. The next thing we heard was on April 15th, so about a month later. And that was the announcement of the addition of general credit as part of the credit, no credit scheme. So credit is a C or above, and then general credit is a C- to a D-, and then no credit is an F. And the way credit and general credit differ is that general credit fulfills all gen ed requirements, but major programs will decide whether or not they will accept gen credit. That was also announced online as well as in the email. And then we got a few intermediate emails just reminding us that the first day to decide would be April 24th. So we had 4 days, the 24th to the 28th to decide. And your decision could be reversed and you could change your mind multiple times. You just had to decide by the cutoff day. So there's one email from Dean of Students that reminded us, but it was part of a longer email. So it was like one bullet point out of a bunch of things. And then we got a reminder on April 23rd. And that also included the announcement that they would suspend Dean's List for the semester. And then we got an email from Provost Liz McGill on April 25th, where she explained that the grading system would not be changed despite some backlash from students. She wrote a lengthy statement saying that the health and well-being of our students is the priority, and she, quote, considered the grading policy. We were guided by several core principles, reducing the stress and anxiety among our students by making this decision prior to the start of the online courses. And she also stated that she heard from dozens of students while deciding the grading policy, and that, quote, the primary driver of the decision was first easing the anxiety and stress of this term by making credit, no credit the default, while at the same time permitting the students the autonomy to choose to receive a grade in some or all of their classes. And that we received on April 25th. And then we got a final reminder email on April 28th, which was the day to decide. And it just reminded us of the policy and saying that we had to decide. And then it said in all caps, there will be no appeal process for missing this deadline. And that was the first we had heard of that policy also.
Okay, so quite a few emails. Were there any communications that were not emailed, or was it all handled via email?
The primary communication was email. Everything we got emailed was also present on the website, but I didn't really hear anything from any other sources. There were a lot of questions in class, and professors weren't 100% sure how it would work. The fact that we had to decide through SIS was a little bit murky. It was mentioned in one email, but it wasn't mentioned in the body of the email. It was mentioned in an infographic at the end of the email that was attached onto it. And then it also said that there were steps to it. So there was a sentence in the April 15th email that said, follow these steps, and it hyperlinked to an outside website that had steps to follow, how to change your grading system. But that was the only announcement of how to do it. So when you asked professors, they didn't know, and we got conflicting information. Some people said collab, some people said the professors can change it, but really the only way to do it was through SIS. But there was only that one email that said that's how to do it.
Okay, so quite a bit of communication, but not necessarily clear communication. And I understand, Kara, that there were a number of students who expressed some displeasure with this system. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest source of Twitter of just student responses were on Twitter. Countless people tagging UVA, reflecting back on what the provost said via letter. It was definitely like a range of just anger and frustration on how students were able to come to a consensus on the last day of classes. Also, the Cavalier Daily, which is the university's school newspaper, also issued out many articles, and also just opinion articles on just how this grading policy is impacting different students and what it may mean for those who decided to take a credit, no credit grade for just graduate schools or medical schools, and what that may mean for them. Other things that they were doing is just in their tweets, just being angry and comparing it with other schools that have had more flexible time periods where they can still, choose a grade, such as UNC Chapel Hill, which they have until August to come to a consensus of what they want to do with their grades. So Twitter was definitely a platform that students used to express their anger, to express just their disappointment and their frustrations, feeling as though the university isn't hearing them and that they have little to no time to come up with something before classes end.
Right. And we'll be sure and include links to those Cavalier Daily stories in the information below this video. So be sure and check those out. So the deadline has passed. It's too late for anyone who hasn't made a decision to change their mind at this point. But Abby, what can you tell us about what happens next? What's sort of the fallout of this?
So, right, as you said, the deadline has passed, and there is no appeal process if you didn't make your decision yet. So everything that you've decided or have done is final. The provost, in her statement, when she made clear that the decision wasn't changing on April 25th, wrote in bold in this statement, I write to explain the reasoning behind these choices and to confirm that our current policy will remain unchanged for the spring semester. So she was very clear in her wording that this is final. Finals begin tomorrow. Today's a reading day. So all of us at UVA are just going into finals if we chose a grading option, hoping that our finals would turn out well for us. And if we chose credit, no credit, maybe we're a little bit more relaxed about it. But other than that, there are some hesitations for some students, specifically first years who need to apply to certain majors that take applications. For example, the School of Commerce released a statement saying that they will take commerce classes that you took for credit or no credit, but they would prefer a graded class. So it will come into consideration for some students who are applying to majors even within the university. And then it's also a consideration for students who are applying for medical schools and grad schools in the future after graduating. Harvard said that they will accept pass-fail grades as long as you passed, but that letter grades would be preferred. as well as other medical schools saying the same thing. So students are just anxious about whether taking credit, no credit classes will negatively affect them.
Right. Just one more thing on top of a turbulent end of a semester, to say the very least. Anything else our listeners, viewers need to know before we sign off tonight? All right, well, let me tell them one thing they need to know, which is you're going to see a lot more videos like this. We've got a group of student journalists together working hard to put together news that is relevant to college students and those just leaving college during this time when things are a little unusual, to say the very least. So stay tuned for more of this. If you would do us a favor, if you enjoyed this video, if you've watched all the way to this point, please give us a like. A subscribe would be great too. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Virginia Reports. We will be back soon with more information for you. For now, on behalf of Abby and Kara, I'll say good night. Thank you.